Well, I like Getner Drummond's going to protect Oklahomans. That's what I like. He sure is protecting Dana Mooney's son. He sure is protecting Lincoln Longman. He's not, well, I mean.
Well, I guess it depends on who you are who he's protecting.
Yeah.
But they all say the same thing, don't they? Christian, conservative, right?
Yeah.
And it's always a bunch of them with their little faces, their cute little faces. I'm going to protect you. And we do this thing where we go, well, I don't know. They're running. I guess we should, take their word for it. And you just don't even have people asking the good questions. They just don't even ask the questions like, how did you vote on X? Or what do you believe about the Constitution? Or we don't ask the good questions. Do you suppose it's because people just don't know what the good questions are?
No, I think people are literally so busy with just life that it just doesn't just kind of they see a postcard or an ad and they're like, yeah, that sounds good, looks good, and that's the end of it. I mean, it's just basic, like you've talked about it before. It's just that basic advertising, that's almost, we've said it, we've called it propaganda before, but I mean that's it. It's if you can get something to make someone believe a certain way, then that's all that's they're going to do as little as possible in order to just justify that belief. So they don't want to have to maybe do any extra homework or ask some hard questions, because then they're going to have to do a lot more work. And I think people, myself included, everybody is somewhat lazy by nature.
So I'm listening to you, and okay, now it's working. Don't we always have some kind of issue with Rumble? It's like, Rumble, leave me alone.
Well, they've been doing all those upgrades also to the software. So,
but it's not. It's just being confusing. So we have Jason Murphy on this morning. Jason Murphy was a legislator, did a whole 12 years in the House. In the Oklahoma House, and he was there during the conservative, what I call kind of the conservative years, because remember 2010 we had the Tea Party movement, and that really helped get some people in that were more, I'm not going to say at the federal level, because obviously we've just really botched that up beyond belief. But at the local level, we really got some good people in, and Jason Murphy was one of them. And he has really begun, he has a Substack now that I want everybody to read. It's called Oklahoma State Capitol, and I'll pull it up here in just a minute. And I want you guys to read it because he has some really great stuff on there. And the thing that we want to talk to him about this morning is what he's calling the People's Report. And I'm going to bring him in and let him kind of explain to you what the People's Report is.
Yeah. And I got to pop off for just a minute.
Okay.
Today is major hectic.
Okay.
I apologize.
No worries. Michael has a job. So tell us about the People's Audit. I called it the People's Report. It's the People's Audit. Tell us about it.
So the idea is that when I was a legislator, I would see all of these votes come through. And they were oftentimes votes where there was no counterparty, but it was just a bad bill, right? And so they take 1,000 votes a year. 100 of them kind of fit that general description. The grassroots weren't necessarily aware of it. There were no two lobbyists on either side. It was just something either special interest or the bureaucracies wanted, or for whatever inexplicable reason, legislators just decided they were going to cast a very, very bad vote. And so it was always frustrating that if their voters only knew how they were really voting, they would be horrified. And I called them the "what are you thinking" votes. Why are you doing this? But they just oftentimes would fly under the radar just enough that even almost no one back in that legislator's constituency or their district even knew about it. And so just seeing those year after year became more and more frustrating. And then I would track them in the post-legislative years for those candidates that might need to know about them. And then in 2024, I started the Oklahoma State Capitol, oklahomastatecapital.com, which was a Substack. But I wanted to do more than just educate people about behind the scenes what goes on, but also give them the tools so that they can then turn around and educate their local friends, neighbors, district, and let them know, hopefully in the form of a direct candidacy and challenge to the co-opted incumbent. But even if not, just some.
Now I'm going to stop you right there because I want this to be very clear. Why do you call it him, she, her, it, him? Why do you call them a co-opted incumbent?
Because their values align with the institutional players and not with the people.
And who are the institutional players?
Any and everything government, and then any and everything that derives a special benefit from government.
See, that's so well said. We need to clip that part. Give me an example. I mean, people who follow this podcast are going to know an example right off the top of their heads, I'm sure. But for people who are going to watch it after live and they're going to go back, give me an example of and something that makes money off of government.
The owners of the billion-dollar organization known as the Oklahoma City Thunder. They have a special thing in law that allows them to get a refund on the taxes paid by their employees. Now, your business doesn't get that, I suspect. I would suspect that no one in this audience can say, you know what, the state sends me a check because I've got powerful connections in the state chamber and an army of lobbyists, and I was able to get a special check every year because I created jobs in Oklahoma. That is an institution. That is an institutional player. That is a special interest institution because they receive a unique benefit wrapped up nicely under the lightly constructed concept of job creation, economic benefit, as most private sector institutions that receive a special benefit will tend to do. There are plenty of, you could use AI to do it now, create jobs in Oklahoma. Here's my NAICS code, put it in law, give me money. And if you have enough relationships with lobbyists and politicians, those co-opted incumbents will cast that green button vote every time. And when they do so, they betray the values of the people back home who are, like Michael said, they're just working hard. They don't have time to figure out the nuances. They're trying to survive. They're trying to bring up their families. They're trying to keep the American Republic from collapsing just by having new humans that are trained the right way, right? It's complicated. And so the gist of the report is, can we identify enough of those votes and explain them, categorize them, educate, so that it isn't just me and you on the podcast anymore, but it's you as a candidate going door to door to door saying, did you know that your co-opted incumbent voted? And in a classy, professional way, educating. And if enough do it, if in every House seat we can have someone that will adopt their district and just keep going door to door until things change, we'll change the state, certainly the House.
Well, and let's, because there are a lot of people that I talk to, and there are a lot of people even on this podcast that'll make comments. And some of them say, it's too late. We're not going to get anywhere. It's the, deep state, blah, and it's the fill in the blank. So I think you saw that it's between 8 and 10 of us neighbors out here in Luther. We put together our own community meeting at which over 140 people showed up to talk about this data center that's possibly coming and this gargantuan transmission line project that's coming. How could we have done that if we didn't do anything?
Yeah, we can give up. And I understand the cynicism that is every bit as co-opting as are the special interest, because it has the same net outcome. I totally understand it. The neat thing about what I call the abstinence approach, which is legislators who are going to say, I am not going to engage in this. There will be no appearance of impropriety. I'm not going to take money from defined special interest. That, I believe, is the answer to that cynicism. I live that in my district. When I would talk about that with people, you could see the light come back in their eyes. And you never forget that, where people are just, you're right. Not all politicians, not all elected office holders are crooks after all. So much of the electorate has totally checked out. And I think with tools like this, with people who are willing to do that challenge to their co-opted incumbent, and most importantly, they're willing to do it on the abstinence platform, abstinence from the appearance of impropriety, that's where we fight that cynicism, which is totally understandable. And maybe we're too late. Maybe the American Republic is doomed. I don't know. But I do know we've got to try something. And I think I've been a big fan of this particular approach.
Well, you know what? I'm not willing to say it's gone until it's gone. You know what I mean? I just can't. There's just something in it. I don't know. Call it God, call it whatever you want. I just can't quit. I mean, I don't see what good it does my kids to quit. How does that help them if I just go, well, we're never going to win, and then I quit? I mean, think about the good legislators we got up there last time we voted, Jason. I mean, look at Molly Jenkins. Look at Jim Shaw. Yep. I mean, we've gotten people in there. We just have to continue to back them up personally, help them out, back them up. Because I think the worst thing is this. So when I was telling the story to somebody the other day, when I was mayor, I realized how, and this is me. So you have to think about that. This is me, the woman with the giant mouth who can stand up in any crowd and say anything, right? And I realized when I was mayor that there is you don't want to get yelled at. You don't want to be the bad guy. You don't want to be the one who's saying no or running. I mean, there's a certain amount of outside influence that can influence you if you let it, right? And the outside influence that any elected official has, there's only one outside influence, right? And that's the people who elected them, period. That's the outside influence. It's not the lobbyist for OG&E. It's not the lobbyist for whoever, right? That's not it. And I think people have got to understand that it is we the people, right, Jason?
It is. And when you really think through that, when a legislator campaigns to an electorate, they are entering into a contract with their employer. And in terms of morality, when a legislator says, I am Christian conservative, I'll defend you and all of that. And then subsequent to that, as the People's Audit at OklahomaStateCapitol.com will show, repeatedly the vast majority betray those concepts. What that legislator is doing is engaging in a big grift. It's no different than going to any other customer and saying, I'll provide you with a product, and then defrauding that customer subsequent. That's immoral. It is in that case, example, illegal. And in this case should be illegal. It's legalized corruption, right? And so when we talk to candidates who are running, one of the things that how we educate them to think about it is when we work together and we create a great push card that takes the abstinence pledge and then says, and here are what the concept and the ideas and the values I stand for. You are entering into a contract door to door to door with that voter. Whether they agree with that or not, it is your word. That's what you're doing. And so when that legislator goes to cast those 1,000 votes a year, that's where they have to have a system if they're not going to lose their way, if they're not going to be influenced by the local school superintendent that comes up and says, you got to do this, or the lobbyist who took them out the night before and suddenly shows up the next day. Hey, that was great. By the way, let me talk to you about whatever it is. All of those things compromise and put that legislator into a state of defrauding the voter. Because when they campaigned as a small government conservative, that was based on certain principles. And so the way I generally advise legislators to cast their vote is you don't do, 5 people called my office. 4 of them want this and 1 want the other. Well, if the 4 of them wanted you to violate your contract with the wider voter base, then they're asking you to violate your word. So you can't govern that way. Certainly you don't govern by what the institutions of power and their representatives tell you. So how do you then cast that vote? And my suggestion is, and we actually have the template developed with conscientious legislators, here's the checklist. Here's what keeps me loyal to that contract that I executed with the voters when they sent me here. And so does it create a new state government agency? Well, more likely than not, I have to vote no on that. Does it create a new process by which an existing agency can get away with doing something to grow their own agency without some oversight? Well, I've got to vote no on that. Is it a fee increase? Well, I've got to vote no on that. So if you use that checklist, and that's really the criteria which we developed this people's audit by to a large extent, then you're going to be fine when it comes to casting votes. It's just taking the emotion out of the moment, going by that checklist, and knowing that in the interim, you might lose some votes because of that, but you've kept your word, and you can go back to, if you're a hardworking legislator, in that next interim, you'll go back door to door and explain what you did in the session and build more good relationships, and you'll never have to worry about being defeated.
Well, and another good legislator that we got in, Kendall Sakieri, who's in the Senate, she does a great job of, she like does a weekly video, for the people who, follow her. And I know there are still some people, like there's some people in my district that don't use the computer. So you have to go visit them door to door. You can't just, you can't just expect the interwebs to do all your work for you, but still it's a great way of being able to communicate with them. So let's talk about the people's audit, because, okay, I'm going to pull in. First of all, I'm going to pull in there it is. All right, here we go. All right, now this is Jason's Substack. So I note the Oklahoma State Capitol, and you can't see it for some reason. It cuts off the top of it, so you can't see the URL. But basically, if you just put Jason Murphy, the Oklahoma State Capitol, you could get it, or it's Oklahoma State Capitol Substack.com. But this is where you need to go to get really good information on what's going on in your legislature. And if, like Michael, I agree with you. People are they're exhausted. I mean, working so hard to pay as many taxes as we do, they're exhausted, and so they just don't have time to follow. But if you follow Jason, then he'll definitely give you some good information that you can use. So this is just the beginning. This is the Substack article that you did about, and look at this. I remember you back then.
So idealistic.
The fresh-faced youngster coming in. I remember that guy. Oh my goodness. We all said he was homeschooled.
That's right.
Yes, you were a big one for us for that. And so you can find the, if you go down in this Oklahoma State Capitol, the one that says introducing the first ever people audit, if you go down to the bottom, you will be able to find what I'm just going to share here in just a second. You can get it for yourself at this URL. Okay. So now we're going to take you to the people's audit, and you can see exactly what that looked like. So I'm going to back up. He's got a very nice picture on the front, and then it goes down, and I do like this. This is very nice. And
can you make that any bigger on your side?
Oh, Jenny? I might be able to. Hold on. Yes. Well, I made it smaller to kind of fit it all in, but you're right. I need to make it.
There we go. That's good.
Is that better? Can people see it now? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the premise, why he did it. Here are the 7 points of categorizing. What he just has it all you can find it. It's all good stuff. He's already talked about the premise, so we're not going to go there, but I want to go down to where we talk about the categories. Okay, now you put some effort into writing about it, and we're not going to have time to go through that, but talk about just briefly overview what's category 1, briefly.
So what you're looking at there it's an attempt to educate the reader, including incumbents who are annoyed by this document, so that we have a way of nicely segmenting, and then maybe in the future we'll do more grading category by category, but also educating in a way that we try to tie it back to fundamental founding principles of the nation, and then explain and educate and deepen the reader who might have surface level good principles, but they need that tie in order to properly subsequently educate others. And in the case of the co-opted incumbent, maybe repent and do better or something, but know how they're going to be graded at least. So we cause them to second guess just blindly hitting the green button. Maybe they remember, oh, this is a transparency exemption. That isn't a good thing if I remember that people's audit. And so I think it will have an impact on those votes. Of course, the best way to win over a seat is for a co-opted incumbent to find religion and understand there's a system and the error of their ways and say and aspire to change. So that's an element of it. But that particular category, it's important because and it's category 1, without that transparency, we don't have anything beyond that.
There is no we the people without transparency.
Nope. So when we talk about open meetings and open records,
yes,
and general transparency concepts, if we lose those, and those are under attack more than ever, primarily in my view, because more and more government agencies are using our taxpayer monies to hire lobbyists, and those paid lobbyists are overwhelming the system. And even those that would traditionally defend open government, there's just so few now. Even the press, there are just so few representatives. So invariably, the county commissioners just agitating to get out of having to do open meeting law. The corporation commissioners, the same ones who will possibly be hearing challenges to that transmission line you mentioned.
Yes, correct.
They got out of it. It's sunset, but to some extent now they can meet in secret. It's shocking turn of events. And we're seeing it more and more. And of course, at the end of the day, the legislature itself has largely exempted itself from this. In 2012, the committee I chaired advanced the proposition that the legislature should be open and transparent. And so we were on the offensive back in the day. Yeah. The subsequent administrations of Hickman, McCall, and Hilbert have put a dark curtain over the Capitol. Yep. And so you may see some legislative rules in this. You'll also, I think, see some ethics issues anywhere where it's a state agency making a play or a government entity making a play on their own empire building without checks and balances, including end runs around purchasing laws where they have to be ethical and open, competitive bidding, you name it. This is the category that captures that. And there are any number of issues every year where purchasing thresholds are limited, are lifted, exemptions are granted, transparencies are withdrawn. This will be the category that captures that. And
Jason,
we don't have anything.
Jason, I haven't read that, but does that section does it address like these private partnerships and these third parties that are exempt in that transparency aspect that we're kind of seeing more and more where government's outsourcing these things? Now we really can't get the information from them.
I'm not sure if we captured any of those votes this year, but I do think that would this year in the right neighborhood. Yeah.
Oh, approving midnight voting. That I don't even want to. Okay. Category 2, enabling legalized corruption, corrupted capitalism, state-directed economy, and special laws for the powerful. Now, that's tax credits, for example. Anything else?
Anything.
Oh, workforce development or job creation funds.
Yeah, that text is really designed to educate the reader on what are the warning signs for what are known as special laws. And so the concept of a special law is an anathema to everything that we believe in, and that is that an entity can have a law created for their own benefit. And these were prevented in the Oklahoma Constitution at statehood, but over the years, they've found a way to get around them, and the court has let them. And so we talk about the tyranny of the acronym. This is the advice to the legislator. Whenever you see an acronym, TIF, as an example, just get scared because in this context, it could be very problematic. And then also for the terminology that they wrap that in. If I can say job creation or workforce development or whatever, and get a benefit for my personal interest, then they're not just going to come out and say this is a special law, just like is an anathema to the concept of ethical government. Because I have political influence, I'm going to get it. They won't say that. They'll say job creation, economic development, you name it. When you hear those terms, more often than not, it's probably a no vote.
Well, and when you look at, what we had last year with 224, Senate Bill 224, where we were putting all the databases together to track kids from birth to death. And then you had Brian Hill literally almost crying on the floor, but I want my kids to stay here and have an education. It's just literally, I just can't even. So they make it somehow about your kids not leaving, staying here and not having to go to another state to get a job. And it's so remarkably asinine that they tie it up into all of this. But I could go on about that until the cows came home, and I don't have any cows right now. So category 3, taking power from the people.
Yeah. These are so conceptually, the government that's closest to the people is the best government. So the idea is if I have my liberties violated or offended, of course, hopefully I have some legal remedy, but who knows anymore. And so the gist of it is, if those liberties were violated by the local policeman, well, I'm going to be at city council and I will be there next Tuesday night in the public forum, and I'm going to potentially make some people that I could start a recall petition on today squirm a little bit. Yeah. They might just redress that grievance. But when, my rights are violated by a policeman from, I don't know, the Grand River Dam Authority, what redress do I have with a state-owned utility company for some reason that has its own private police force? And so we are constantly seeing expansion of police powers legislation. I think there was one that expanded the police power of like the propane commission. They have a policeman. They show up at your food truck and you didn't hook up something right. Maybe they want to put you in cuffs now. I don't know. How are you going to redress that? Can you go to your city council and say the propane policeman arrested me for no good reason? So the idea is the police powers is just a key example. Yeah. You put that where the electorate has a vote and a voice, and importantly, whenever possible, where they're not in a big pool and they can't make a difference.
Well,
yeah.
Well, and I do think too, it's so important to remember that people talk about the swamp. That was a huge term with Trump and has been the swamp. Well, there is a swamp. We have a swamp. Oklahoma has a swamp. Okay. It's a bunch of unelected bureaucrats that our state representatives have allowed to do law basically for them. So we don't have an ability to direct our focus on the legislature to stop X or whatever that is, because they've offsourced that power to a bureaucratic agency. So bad. So category 4, assaulting American values, attacking the social and cultural best practices. So what are we talking about here? The DEI stuff?
Yes, everything woke would go in there. And then also anything that undermines the social fabric of the American experiment, generally speaking. And so you could, for instance, put the illegal alien driver's license in that category. Yeah. It's an assault on the rule of law. It's validating those who break our laws. And at that point, the law is of no effect because it's meaningless. Why should I comply with the law when you are going to validate those who do not and give them a benefit? What at that point is the value of citizenship? And this is the one where the more libertarian aspect of the populist coalition, this is probably the only area where there might end up being some disagreement, but it would also capture some of those which legalize and normalize vices that have long held to be corrupting to the general society. Prostitution, gambling. I think maybe we put the party box legislation in this category, which is the legislation that would give authorize certain nonprofits to give needles and other things to illegal drug users.
Okay. I hadn't heard it called that before.
It's a party in a box. They basically show up with a box for everything you need to totally risk your health and encourage your addictions. That's actually one of the highly graded votes in this index.
Okay.
And so legislation such as that would certainly fall into this category.
Okay, so category 5, increasing government power, regulatory expansion, enactment of the surveillance state, and punishing those who abide by the social contract. So give me a couple of because I'm probably going about this the wrong way, because you have in the categories, you have taken legislation from last session and said, here's where this goes in that category. Now I'm going to see how your representative voted, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I'm wondering if we should just flip directly to the category 6, growing government spending, debt, and new government bureaucracies. Category 7, government money grabs, fees, and taxes. And don't even get me started on that, because I want people to see how their legislators are doing. Okay, so I'm going to kind of scroll through here so we can get down to the audit. So you explain, and I'm not going to go into that here because, like I said, I want to kind of focus on the laws and what the legislators have voted. But you explain how you graded. So it's not like they can't say, well, I don't even know how this.
Yes. Yeah, the grading system is pretty simple. Everything's weighted equally. Lawmakers are given the ability to miss 3% of the votes without counting against them. Any more than that, then they count. Except, and in life, there's sort of a good policy, which is don't have a policy named after you. 3 legislators did that to this audit because they didn't vote right a single time. And so I couldn't, it's like, well, I'm not going to give them the 3%. They got a 0. And so if you got a 0, you got a 0. But if you did vote right some, then it recognizes you can miss 3% of the votes and not count against you. Other than that, they're weighted equally. So it's pretty simple.
Well, this is very interesting. So the average grassroots score by party. So the Republicans got 20.3% and the Democrats got 7.9%. But honestly, there's not that much of a difference there. That's frightening.
It is. And it's that's a uniparty indicator. What that says is if you have a general bad piece of legislation and it's bad for all their right reasons, both parties, if it's under the radar, the Republicans will try to get away with a bad vote just as much as the Democrats will. But it's also showing, and one thing to always note, that the Democrats betray their populist principles that they purport to hold, which is they're for the working man. They're not for the big corporation, right? No, the Democrats, the most liberal Democrats in the world, they are the party of the Oklahoma City and Tulsa elite now. They don't have any bearing to those 1980s rural Oklahoma Democrat coalitions where they could even make the case I'm for the working man.
Yeah.
It's just not there anymore. There's not a blue collar element in that caucus of any significant size at all. And so it's a uniparty thing now. And you'll just see leadership Republicans, certainly, and Democrats. The worst ranking Republicans are below the Democrats. And it's the conscientious ones that are keeping that Republican score up.
So let's go. So here is, I'm just going to go down, and then we'll hit the laws at the end, kind of where you have them. And
Sure.
So people can review those. So we just had this man on the show on Wednesday. If you missed it, shame on you. Tom Gann, 94.57. Holy cow.
Yep. And keep in mind, that was 93 graded votes. So 87 times he had read the bills and he caught it.
Okay, but I do want to point this out, okay? Because I think this particular, what I'm about to say, I think this particular philosophy is one of the reasons why people get cynical, okay? So Tom Gann, according to this report, had 5 bad votes. Okay, so in your perspective, Jason, is there a perfect legislator?
Just this is a long response. I've got to shorten it to a couple sentences. The legislative system, that dark curtain of darkness that Hickman, McCall, and Hilbert have put on that building, means that sometimes a legislator may have, I don't know, sometimes maybe minutes to know what they're voting on.
Minutes.
I may have missed some of these votes. I had the luxury of taking my time and going through every vote. As long as it took, I did it after the session. I had that luxury. If I had been on the floor, I did not have that luxury. And so and I will tell you, McCall specifically is asking for our votes right now, pretending to be grassroots conservative everywhere he goes. So is John Eccles, his lieutenant. Those people put in a system. That means even the most conscientious legislators in that legislature are so hard pressed to catch what's rolling through. Then sometimes there's just absolute trickery. One of the ones again missed, I remember it because it was a mandate on OSBI to seek federal funds for what I call DEI law enforcement, closed cases of indigenous people. And so that was offensive, right? It's like, if I have a closed case of my relative from the 1990s and you could solve it, but their race isn't right, no DEI law enforcement, go fix that case, right? And so a couple of years back, a law was passed and it said OSBI, if they can get federal funds, they need to fund this position. Well, I don't think they ever got the federal funds. So this time a liberal Democrat takes to the floor and introduces the bill and says, you know what? He's like, we're going to remove the requirement that the agency seek federal funds for this. It's like, oh, okay. So if you're sitting on the floor and you hear that, you're like, oh, good. This is another federal program that we're going to get rid of. Now,
oh, I see.
Now, when they did that and struck through it, it turned into a mandate on OSBI to fund it with state dollars. And so I'm going to put that on the grade because of how bad it is. I'd really like to give anyone who got it wrong a mulligan because I may have got that wrong. If I had heard that explanation, I would have thought, yeah, we're not going to have a federal program on this. Now, I don't know how much time that bill is even available for review. But the gist of it is when you're on the floor and you're doing 1,000 votes, and remember, a good section of those are just jammed into like 2 weeks, or 4 weeks at the end of the deadlines.
Yeah.
And so the gist of it is you just have all these things flying at you. It's the only, in my view, month that the legislature actually does work. But it's a horrible, horrible system. In my view, all of that legislation should be sponsored and held over for a significant amount of time so that the Tom Yans of the world have the luxury of doing what I had, which is, okay, let's take it and let's find out. But he's trying, and he is getting dead close on catching everything. I mean,
well, and that's the point I wanted to make here. I mean, for 100 reasons, there is not going to be a perfect legislative score on anything. I mean, just unless you've picked somebody that you want to, bring forward, and you've managed the score to make them look the best. So there just isn't, and everybody. We're all just people, and legislators are the same thing. And so I want to make 2 points with that. Number one, you can't get cynical just because they're not always 100%. You don't know the reason why. And just like Jason said, sometimes these happen so fast and they're not explained properly, or they put in you've read the bill and then suddenly they on the floor, they're adding an amendment to it or taking something out, and then it takes you a while to figure out, what's actually going on. That happens a lot. But then the other point that I want to make hold on. It was there just 1 second ago when I started running my mouth.
I hate it when that happens.
Oh, I know what it was. Okay. If you're in touch with your legislator, and if you know something about legislation, help them. They're there for you, right? And this really kind of pisses me off, frankly. We get all excited. Oh, they're going to be for us. And you send them up there. We vote them in and they go up there. And then all of a sudden they're like, well, okay, we're done now. We got this good guy in. Any good guy is going to want your help. the constituents help any of them. Well, can you read this bill for me? Or can you check to make sure that this is, so help your legislator. Don't just send them up there and then go, oh, well, you'll do great on your own. Well, you sent them up to represent you. Help them represent you. Don't you think that's fair?
Yes, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay. So let's go on. So the next one up is Molly Jenkins. Molly, she's so awesome. I've known Molly for so many years. It's hard to remember when I didn't know Molly. And she got a 92. This is Rick West.
Yes.
Who is running for labor commissioner, correct?
That's Kevin West.
Kevin West.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is Rick West with the mustaches. There's so many Wests up there. It's hard to remember. Rick West, he's got huge mustaches and he's so funny. I like Rick. So he's way up there. Jim Shaw, look at this, way up there. Gabe Woolley. Jim Olson is another one. He's been there quite some time.
He found his sea legs this year. He really did.
Say again.
He found his sea legs. Before, I think it was harder on him, but he's figuring it out.
Well, that's good because I've been a little critical of him. So this was interesting to see. Hildebrandt, Crosswhite Hater. I would hope that hers would be, that's a lot. Humphrey is a little further down than I would think. Cody Maynard, Smith. Help me.
I really need to put the first names on here, don't I?
Yeah, because I was.
I would think having a last name of Smith could be good and bad. And in this case, he's above 40%. And the general suggestion is that those that are in the 40%, you have to decide. And then the recommendation is that 50% and higher, those 8, those are the ones who should be retained.
Jason, on like below the 50%, I noticed like a lot of those people have a lot of missed votes. Is that weighting them down more so than if they would have voted, or what do you think there?
Yep.
That is big.
There's an allowance for 3% for whatever reason, and then above that, it counts against you. So the person that
had 24 missed votes. That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
If you drop all the way to the bottom, the people that I said, don't let them name a policy after you, where they didn't get a single good vote, and we had to count all their missed votes against them. Stinson, Sterling, and Kennedy. If you look at Kennedy,
let's go down to the bottom.
45 missed votes. He's a lame duck. And we all know that once a bill hits the floor, it doesn't matter anyway. They're going to pass it almost always. And so why does he want to take his time to show up and vote? He's missing half the votes almost in this index. So, and then you see that with Stinson. Stinson, unlike Kennedy, is not a lame duck. He represents one of the most conservative districts in the state. I know that. I had one of his precincts used to be in the district I represented, and it was one of my best. And he missed 42. And then on the 51 he was there for, he cast the wrong vote every time. So if those 3 guys, they messed up the system is designed so you can miss 3% of the vote, but they didn't vote right a single time, so they didn't get that credit.
I hope the people in Edmond, or I guess it's Arcadia, Edmond, who are represented by Stinson, are looking at this, because really, truly, you can complain, and there is a lot of complaint. And the GOP does it too. Well, I don't think it's fair because these bills are blah, blah, blah. And you shouldn't just, I don't like being graded, that kind of thing. Well, I'm not going to get into that, but I will say this. I don't think it really matters too much what you're being graded on if you can't get anything right one time out of, how many bills did you look at?
93.
Yeah. Please tell me, come on. 93. So those of you who want to flail your arms and say, well, this is just a, blah, blah, 93. Okay. Really? 0 of 93? Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I do want to point out too, because Michael and I have talked about Pfeiffer on our show before. And when we've had our friend Carmen Greider on, and, her website, carmengreider.com, where she basically puts all the information about who is funding these legislators out on her website. I'm not sure. I know Pfeiffer for sure. I haven't looked at Stinson or Sterling, but I know Pfeiffer for sure. I believe it was, I don't know if you'll remember, Michael, wasn't it 92% of all of the funding in his district came?
Yeah, I was going to say it was like 8% was in his own district. He was like one of the lowest in the whole state of people supporting him within his district.
Yep.
So I think that may be the other layer that you put over this, Jason, is how much special interest money they're getting. Because you would have to think that if they're getting more special interest money, then they're getting actual individual donations from those people in their district.
Yes, I agree. And I think I recently wrote an article to that effect, basically indicating that the People's Audit, the Grassroots Republican Platform Scorecard, and the Oklahoma Conservative Index all validate the abstinence pledge. And that is that if you look at this, the ones who are attempting to follow through with that commitment, they rank very well. They're all in the top 8 to be retained. Of the people below that, not a single one that I'm aware of is significantly applying that concept. But that this won't be an anomaly. You'll see it in the Conservative Index, and I suspect the upcoming days when the newest party platform index is released, you're going to see it there too. And that the gist of it is there is a direct correlation between special interest funding and awful voting, and it validates what I think is the answer, and that's if we're going. I do not want to spend time or effort electing representatives unless they're in that top 8 or unless they're doing that abstinence pledge. And so that is a criteria I think we have to insist on every time possible and in every district possible, because you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. We all know that's insanity. And so this is something where we're getting results because we now have a significant sample size. It isn't just 1 or 2 of us anymore who are rejecting those thousands of dollars in campaign contributions. It's legitimately about 5 members. They're turning down thousands of dollars. And for some reason, they're the top voters in every meaningful index with an inverse correlation with the bad indexes. So the state chamber is going to rank them low. You always know if you see a high state chamber ranking that legislator is probably problematic. And so you can look at the good indexes, you can look at the bad ones, and they're going to tell you one thing. The answer is the abstinence commitment, abstaining from the appearance of impropriety, not accepting money from registered special interest groups and or their lobbyists.
Now, Jenny, wasn't Dana's database going to kind of really break that out very simply? Dana Mooney, the database. Working on the software that she's raising money for.
Yeah, that's not so much the idea of that. That might be part of the idea, but I think the main idea of what she's working on right now is just getting to the point where we can follow these bills.
Oh, okay.
Have a database in place where we can actually follow the bills, because that's the hardest thing of all, is tracking these stupid things. And just like Jason, you came on, was it the last time you came on, and you were talking about the extra layer of the second committee that we now have in the House? So instead of just going to one committee and then having it being voted on in that committee and then going to the floor, now we have we have one committee and then we have another committee that it has to go through before it gets on the floor. So that all they're doing is picking and choosing what the leadership wants to pass, not necessarily what needs to continue to move through. So it's I just get so mad.
Yeah. Well, and while we're on this screen, Jeannie, Robert had a question for Jason. So is below 50 an F in your opinion on this, Jason, or kind of where's that line drawn on this for you?
Definitely below 40 would be an F. I would suggest that in that 40 to, I think there are four legislators in that 40 to 50 range. Those are the ones that maybe look at the circumstances, they missed votes for health reasons, or maybe they're trending in the right direction. And you can ask the question, is it easier to allow that legislator to continue to mature and get better? Are they going in the right direction as opposed to challenging them? And so I think you just have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. And then all of this is a lazy rule of thumb. Districts are highly complex. But that lazy rule of thumb would also suggest if it's 40% or under, that is a legislator that should not be there.
Well, and I did want to point out, I had this up on the screen for a second. Sorry, I hope it's not making people nauseous when I scroll through here. I just wanted to you added Democrats in here. Pittman's a Democrat. Lowe is a Democrat. Hefner is a Democrat. So these people are actually doing better than this is a Republican. This is a Republican. I don't know about Dempsey. Osborne's a Republican. Pay is a Republican. Stinson, Sterling, Kennedy. Those are all Republicans. So you have Democrats with a better score than Republicans.
Yes. Once in a while, maybe on like legislative transparency issues, rules changes, that type of thing, which are some of the most important votes, because it starts with the Gann plan, his proposal to reform the rules and lift that dark curtain I talked about. That changes the context of a lot of this. If we have a transparent legislature, from time to time, for instance, in that context, when the rules amendment is on the floor and the leadership went to table it, we captured some of those votes. You'll never see those in any other indexes. They're not even recorded. We had to very carefully do the pixel analysis on the scratchy live feed to just see who voted how. So some Democrats got credit because, of course, they would view it as favoring them if you did have a more open environment. Now, sometimes they just shut it down and they don't care. Maybe they've made a deal behind the scenes or whatever. So once in a while, you will have a Democrat cast a good vote there. But as a general rule, it's uniparty, and they just don't do well.
So I want to point out, this is my representative, John George. He has a score of 5.43. But I also want to point out that he sits next to this person on the floor. Okay, so I just thought I'd point that out. He has a 5.43. He hasn't missed any votes. You got to give him that. He's voted wrong all the time, just about, except for 5 votes. I'm dying to know what the 5 votes were, but he's voted wrong that many times. So let me go on so that we can you have the votes literally on here. So if people are like, well, I don't know what these votes even have to do with anything, you put them on here. It's not like you allowing non-citizens to arrest citizens. This was a crazy thing.
Yeah, it ranks number 1 for that reason.
I was absolutely shocked that we would legitimately have cities and towns who were hiring as policemen people who weren't citizens of the United States.
Yeah, and that is a blue state trend that the virtue signaling left loves to point to. The first person of Somali descent to, have a badge and a gun and ability to arrest you. It's just an out of control trend. Credit to State Representative Rick West, the mustache guy. Rural values. He has a constituent. He has a policy. He does not carry legislation for the bureaucracies. He carries legislation from his constituency. And he had a retired police officer, as I recall, who said, hey, there's a problem. Oklahoma hasn't stopped this practice. And so he brings a bill, which was an easy slam dunk vote that every consultant would have been happy to put on the card of they're idiotic members who, if they had only been thinking, but for whatever reason was happening that day, I think it's probably because it was retaliation against Rick West for being principled and being one of the people who vote no on bad bills. And I think they were going to do payback on him. It was one of the most epic cell phones I've ever seen. Dobrinsky, the Kingfisher rep, took to the floor and tried to make a case that he had previously passed legislation, something about CDLs to non-citizens. And this was before that issue blew up, but he was on the floor, literally quoted something to that effect in going at Rick on his bill. And so I rarely see epic cell phones by so many House members as I did on this vote, but it showed where their loyalties lie, where the common sense lies. If you ask any voter back in the district who's voting for them based on their conservatism, hey, do you think non-citizens should be able to arrest you? The answer is no. What are you talking about? That's insane. But on this day, a strong majority of the House decided that status quo should be maintained. And so we put this first. This is the first vote for all the right reasons. And this is one of the rare examples of an index vote where yes was the right vote. But for some reason, the majority of that sided with the leftist, liberal, woke Democrats, virtue signaling as they were, and they voted it down. And Rick West did not give them the courtesy of reconsideration, which they probably got caught off guard by that. He kept them on the record, just exposing them for what they were. And that this is a vote that I suggest grassroots candidates, if their legislature was on the wrong side of it, are well advised to use, as hopefully they unseat those who had the bad judgment to just be vindictive, as far as I see it, to their own detriment.
Now, I'll be honest, I haven't had time to do this. If you click on the link, it takes you directly to, so you click on that link, peeps, it takes you directly to it. So you can actually see, how did you have time to do all of this? I mean, this is just flat nuts. How do you have time to do this? This is wild.
The time that's important. And so what you're looking at on the screen, I think is Kennedy's sheet.
Yes,
which always does them the courtesy of listing their good votes first, I think. And in his case, there are no good votes.
Correct.
And so I think that that's what's so important. He's a lame duck, but maybe he runs for something in the future. But the idea is we need that publication that allows the person in that district, if they want to print that thing out, they can, and find the worst offenders and make their own document, the top 5 or whatever. That's the idea. And then there are Templars in these breakdowns to just illustrate using a hypothetical representative named Rex Banner and saying, when Rex Banner voted against House Bill 1190, he violated a vital principle. American citizenship is a prerequisite for enforcing the rule of law. The idea is give a template and then do it for each representative. So we go above and beyond in showing how it is that we can challenge these co-opted incumbents and educate the people.
So guys, everybody who's watching, we have a nice audience on. Please share this. Please share this. And if you have a representative in your district that's running again, right, they're an incumbent, people in Stinson's district, you should be asking Representative Stinson how in the world he got a 0. You shouldn't just be pallying up, with him.
Yep. And if you're in Stinson's district, know that your day of liberation is at hand. He has a very credible challenger who I believe will be communicating these things.
Yeah. What is his name?
John Bachman.
John Bachman. Yes.
John.
So yep. We need to start having people, I think, on the show who are, working that out again. So we've got to have a little bit of time to talk to people who are running. Okay. So I just want to go through a couple of these because we don't want to spend, a bunch of time on that. But number 2 is unbelievably huge.
Mm-hmm. That's why it's number 2. Yeah.
Well, explain.
This is, as best I can tell, it breaks with the American tradition, which is that if the city wants to have a go at taking your property from you, abating you, whatever, they can put a lien on it. And so when you go to sell that property, that lien has to be dealt with.
Isn't that called condemnation?
Yeah, whatever the processes they go through,
Yeah.
they can abate. They can, if you're a nuisance, a genuine nuisance, hopefully, and not an abuse of city authority after you. The idea is that keeps them in check, though, because if they can't take your property from you, then they're not supposed to use that process to, if they want your property. What this bill appears to have done is set us on a very dangerous path, which is, and it doesn't apply to owner-occupied properties just yet, but it starts. So if they think your rental property or whatever probably is a problem, they start to abate it. And now they don't just put a lien on it. They go to court and they take the property.
Nope.
This is shocking. Everything that we talk about in terms of liberties and property rights, that this was passed by the reddest state in the union or whatever. This is just one of those, what were you thinking? And then some votes. And of course, you can see on the bottom, we have the template. We have the link to the bill itself. So you can go check that out and make sure you understand it and you're not just taking the study's word for it. A no vote is obviously the right one. And then we put it in the category. And so we continue to educate here. Here's the category it belongs in. Here are the principles. You can scroll back up and look at that category, and its ties to founding principles. And this is a great issue for educating on why increasing government power is bad and why the next time your local state representative sends you that bill saying they're for the people and smaller government, no, they had the incredible judgment to vote on this, which was probably an institution of power request, right? More likely than not, this came from the Coalition of City Governments, another acronym, OML. More likely than not, those were the ones who were driving it. And so it's shocking in every way.
Interesting. They have been doing this for blight. The same attorney since 1966 for urban renewal and redevelopment services who give the tickets for blight. Well, let me just point, if you don't mind, let me point something out. So one of the things that I am starting to really try to do is when I say this is wrong, right? I try to explain why it's wrong. But then I also want to substitute a real life example of how you would solve the problem. So in the cases of blight, all right, you would expect that, let's say inside a town, all right, you have, and inside Luther, my goodness, when I became mayor here, we had a lot of blight going on. But you have a code, in the town, and you can argue for whether that's good or bad, but so long as people are held to the same standard, if you have a code officer who simply goes out and says, hey, you need to clean up this area, that's one thing. But if they say you need to clean up this area, and if you don't, we're going to put a lien on your property, that's another thing entirely. What should happen is the neighbors should get together and either go help to clean the property up. I mean, what if it's a neighbor of yours who is a very poor person or a person who is incapacitated? Could you not help them clean that up? Is there not a group in this town? We have an actual group who goes out and does that. They're a church group who goes and does that. Can you not find a church group or create a group that would go out into your town and help to clean up the areas that need to be cleaned up? That's what they did here. So it is not as though this is the only answer, is getting government involved. One of the biggest things that and I really hounded on this on our meeting on Monday, our community meeting on Monday. One of the ways that the special interests and big government is getting away with what they're getting away with is we have decoupled ourselves from our neighbors. We don't know who our neighbor is. We don't know their name. We don't know anything about them. We don't have a relationship with them. That is not the way this country was built. We were built on neighbors helping neighbors. My goodness, that's how the whole thing worked. So when you want to, the only problem is it takes effort to do that. And while I know that we're all under a lot of pressure and strain, and there's so many things going on, to actually concentrate on your neighbors and what your neighbors need and what you can do for them not only makes you a better person, it makes your neighborhood a better place. It makes your city a better place. Am I wrong?
No.
I mean, we just have got to be and then Robert says, yes. Isn't helping your neighbor biblical? And those of us who are Christians, we should totally be defaulting to that instead of having the government take over for us. So there are ways to get around this garbagey nonsense. And part of the reason why our liberties are being taken away from us is because we won't take them back. When we abdicate all these things, big government comes in and says, well, I'll do that job for you, but you don't need any rights because I'm going to do that job for you. That's the problem. So elect people who are going to help you help your town. Elect people who are going to help be there for your neighbors and get the neighbors to do the jobs instead of the city or the town or the government or whoever it is. So there, I'm sorry.
Well, this legislation doesn't do any of that. It just basically incentivizes the government with a new mechanism for targeting and potentially taking your property through over aggressive enforcement.
Exactly.
And again, it's yet another action in which the legislature fails to recognize human nature being inherently greedy, and the means by which certain people seek to accomplish who knows what, the means of government. You do not give government new tools like this.
All right, so let's look at a couple of more. Just let's do the top. Where are we on time? I don't know what your day is. You didn't tell me. We're at 1:12. Jason, what do you got?
If you want, we can do the top 5.
Let's do the top 5.
The next one is the previously mentioned party in a box, and that is drug paraphernalia to recreational drug users. This was a program which inexplicably the legislature approved. This is something you'd see in Seattle or Portland.
Yeah. When did that happen? I didn't even hear about this one.
Oh, yes. It's an ongoing deal. And this was the bill that sought to extend it because they had sunset that. And so it was originally created by one of the most liberal Republicans to ever appear in the Capitol, Carol Bush, I think her name was.
Yeah.
And then the second most liberal Republican, or one of the most, I think, Pay from Lawton, is now trying to extend this program. They got it off the House by a narrow vote, and it's over on the Senate now awaiting their consideration. And so this is, you'll see the Oklahoman opining about this. They're afraid that it'll go away. Well, the House and the reddest state in the union, they've endorsed it. They've said it should continue. And that speaks to everyone from the speaker on down. And this is a defining vote. Now, there were a large number of Republicans that did vote right on this. It barely passed, but it's a very important vote. And if your representative was one of the ones who voted for this, this again was one of the what are you thinking and then some votes.
Party number 4. This one infuriates me.
Me too.
Midnight voting, legislating on the people as the people sleep. Yes, precisely.
Yes. And this was the last day of session. Legislators played a lot of games that day. And when they played all those games, they almost had to come to terms with the fact that they would have to come back the next day. But man, their hearts sure were set on finishing on that day. So why let midnight hour and the important tradition that the very basic tenet of legislative process decency suggests wrap things up before people go to bed. And of course, they couldn't help themselves. They went to about 2:00 in the morning, if I remember right. And in the process, they did a very, very substantial thing, which was, I think it was after 5, they file a resolution decapitating a state agency, removing the head of that agency, whether rightly or wrongly, certainly without any form of due process. And they showed their mindset when they did it by that mean and method, instead of giving it normal legislative due process on what they made their last day of session, in which they voted after midnight they filed something after business hours, and they had voted and finalized it by that night. And it was very substantial. It set a very interesting precedent, and could go on at length about that as well. But in principle, as someone who always saw the old guard Democrats covering of the clock and all the tricks they used to play as something that we would never allow to happen under Republican governance, this was one of those next step things. And I can chart that ever since Jeff Hickman's speakership starting in 2014, where there was a next step, going in the wrong way, a new precedent where they put that curtain of secrecy over the building, and they just keep adding to it. And so pretty much every legislature I can point to and say this was a defining moment. And there were multiple moments like that during this most recent session. We've talked about some of those here before. This one we captured. This was a suspension of the rules vote. And this is not a vote that you'll see on any other index. Other indexes track bills. They don't track suspension of the rules. And so it's almost thought of as a duty for a Republican representative to vote for suspension of the rules when their leadership asks for it. Some suggest that's a procedural vote, and you're disloyal to the point that you would vacate the chair if you do not vote for that. And so it's time to start grading those and saying no. Whenever they're setting new dangerous precedent like this, if you vote to suspend that rule, expect that someone in your constituency might start talking about it. And this is one everyone should talk about, because no one's going to support the concept of legislating after midnight.
Well, and here's the thing, a bunch of them were drunk on the floor, and, Shane Jett tried to get Lonnie Paxton, who's the Senate pro tem, to do something about it, which of course he never did. He never sanctioned any of them. It's illegal for them to be drunk on the floor. It was obvious if you watched that many of them were. And this is not something that is an isolated instance. I remember when they were running the school choice bill, which I have always been very against using taxpayer money to fund private education for people. I've always been, I'm a school choice advocate. Obviously, I homeschooled my kids. But I am very against the government taking money from people to then turn around and give them it to other people to private school their children. I just can't stand it. Well, when we had, I'm having a mind block on his name, the pro tem before Paxton. Treat did the same exact thing when the quote unquote school choice bill, the one to use taxpayer funds to fund private education, when that one came up, that vote, and I know because I go to bed at 9:30 or 10. Come on, I get up first thing in the morning, so I go to bed early to bed, early to rise. I stayed up for that vote. It was well after 12 o'clock, and Jana Belcher and anybody else who's on here could concur with me. That vote was well after midnight. And not only was it after midnight, Jason, here's the other one that's got to be taken care of. And I guess it just has to be a rules change. You can't leave the vote open for an hour and 15 minutes so that you can twist the arm of your neighbor to make them vote in a way that will finally get them to be able to go home. I cry BS on that.
That is a component, I believe, of the GAN plan, and that is that no, you have to put a constraint on the amount of time that a vote is open, 2 minutes, something like that. What the House has done has made for what's called perpetual consideration, and they did that. This was another step too far moments they did this year. They invalidated basically the concept of final action.
SB 224.
You got it. They basically said, we're going to vote it until it passes. So don't even bother opposing us, because we'll get it one way or the other.
Clip.
So there's no longer a concept of final action. And which ironically enough means they probably don't have to leave the vote open all day, because they'll just go twist them behind the scenes and reconsider and never kill anything. And so that's actually for them probably the solution to the bad perception of the 12-hour vote or whatever. But the idea is you have to stop both of those. And again, this gets back, and I think it is graded on down here, the rules package that when the House approved, it was the worst one yet. And we can't let our legislators vote for those rules packages unless they start moving the other way and getting better. And then Tom Gann has his Gann plan, which starts to move to an actual open legislature. And
well,
part
but
of that
don't
is,
forget, this was the other thing about the rules, the little game they played with the rules last session too. Oh, I didn't send them to you, the changes. Oh, darn it. Well, here it is. Here it is at midnight, and we're going to vote on it at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yep. Yeah, that's very customary on the rules to hold them until very late and give very little consideration. And of course, when the rules are maybe available over the weekend, maybe not, who knows, but there are no rules governing that at all because there are no rules adopted yet. So it's a pretty interesting deal. But when the rules do come up for a vote, legislators have to know now that the people are going to expect that they start taking that dark curtain down. And
they have to.
That's
because
nothing
none
else
of that is
matters
right
until they do that, really.
Yeah. Okay, so number 5, keeping the people of Oklahoma from knowing the impact of illegal immigration on their schools. Boy, did that blow up.
Yes, this was an epic vote. You've talked about Molly Jenkins. She was so courageous in the House, and Shane Jett did the same in the Senate. Actually, though the House never put it in the journal, we can reverse engineer how that went because Jenkins got a division on the vote. And so this is one that, especially as we see the news cycle highlighting the fraud that's built into illegal immigration, this is one that we can easily make the case to the voters. Your legislator and many of the establishment ones this time, they're saying close the border, which they're confusing people. They think the voter is going to be too stupid to know they aren't running for Congress. But when they go out with that soundbite, the challengers will be well advised to use this vote, and many Republican legislators are on the wrong side of it. And basically what they are saying is they don't even want the basic metric, something that is so basic that we all need to know, which is how many illegal aliens are in the school system. How is this affecting our test scores? Is this causing a shift of funding from rural districts to urban that's incentivizing urban districts to grow their illegal base based on it means more funds? These are policy discussions that have to be had. No one would run a business without knowing the metric of how many customers are using my service who aren't supposed to. And so this was the one that exposed the machine. And this is what I'm writing about next week. Okay. If you are a subscribing member of the Oklahoma State Capitol Substack, we have a feature that allows you to read ahead of time what will come out the next week. And you can actually read this article now by going to that Substack page. But the gist of it is this suggests that a defining issue for the upcoming election cycle is who's in on the big grift and who isn't. And the greater news cycle about illegal alien immigrant fraud is tied to this. Legislators don't want that to be exposed in Oklahoma. It's going to be happening here. And on this basic metric, they shut it down. But Molly Jenkins, incredibly courageous, freshman legislator doing that. That's not supposed to happen. They're going to want her not to be there. And I think they're working on that. I think she'll be fine. But the gist of it is she did an incredible job holding them accountable.
Well, and I do think it's important to mention that before we get off of here today, Jason. So we have really good legislators who the really bad legislators are finding people to run against.
That's right. Because it will be the Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, it's not about we the people. It's about we the special interest.
Yep. The two most crucial races, I think you'll have this cycle in terms of keeping, we've got the foothold, we've got Normandy, we've got the beachhead. They're going to try to drive us back into the sea, and they're going to do it in 33 and 32, Shaw and Jenkins. Yeah. Those two have to win, because if they do, they prove that the beachhead isn't going away. And that
the people are in charge.
Exactly.
And I'm going to keep saying that. It's we the people for a reason. And we're forgetting that. So let's get back to remembering me, you are the people.
Exactly.
If somebody steps in and does it for you, then it's not we the people, it's we the somebody else. So I just encourage you to look at this and use this. And Jason, I just have to say, and I'm not just trying to blow hot air. This is the most amazing piece of work I think I've ever seen. I don't know how you managed to put all of this together and how it could be absolutely, I just don't even know how you did this. But if you can't go out, people, you the people, we the people, and use what Jason has right here and stand up to the GOP establishment who's going to say, well, we don't like to have grades of our legislators. Well, this is 92 votes, people. It's not like he picked out 5 votes and said, this is 92 votes. Now, let's be realistic here. If you can't learn something from 92 votes, well, I'm not even going to go there. That's crazy. Jason, you have done an amazing job.
Yeah.
Round of applause for Jason.
Happy
it's
to
excellent.
Help. It's a new tool we were able to bring online. There will be more to come in this vein. Stay tuned, oklahomastatecapital.com, and the whole goal is to provide insights so that people understand what's really going on, and at least on a weekly basis, pretty much. And then to continue bringing tools and technology online that will actually transition that knowledge into action and make a difference. And we're just getting started.
Well, I mean, God love you. Seriously. It's absolutely phenomenal what you've done. And if people want to say, well, I couldn't get so-and-so out of office and we couldn't win, then they're not using your tools and they're not using them right.
You start now and you don't stop until there's change. And if you stay with it, just stick with it, even if it's multiple election cycles, you'll either change that incumbent back and counter the influences that are co-opting them, or you'll replace them. It's a matter of time. There's so many great districts, provided, very important note, that you keep the right of the Republican Party to nominate their own nominees. Once you lose that, this becomes much harder.
Yeah, 836. I always forget the number. State question 836.
That sounds right. Vote no.
Just vote no on screwing with our elections. We're fine.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being with us, Jason. I can't thank you enough. I mean, dang, again, just amazing work. And, I'm so happy that we're getting this out. And I'll make some good little
clips.
Yes.
Shorts.
Yes. I was going to say shorts because now the program just clipped that. Because if you say clip, the program will clip it. But we'll make some shorts and get it out and really get people working on this, because this is the only way to win. It really is. Get people to ask the tough questions, right? And here's how you do it. So thank you, Jason. We really appreciate you so much. Thank you for being with us.
Yep. Anytime. You got it.
All right. And we will see you again soon, I'm sure, because you'll be with us. I'm sure we'll have you back to discuss some legislation here in the next several weeks. So stay tuned.
Okay. I'll look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, Jason. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Honestly, Michael, how do people say, well, I can't change anything. I can't do anything. How do people do that if they don't use this tool?
Yeah. Well, and on top of that, Jason made a great point right there at the end with, we have to stay on it, even if it takes multiple cycles, because you and I have talked about it before. The uniparty wins, big government wins through attrition, through us just not showing up anymore. People get all riled up. They go to school board meetings maybe once, twice, 2, 3 times. Then all of a sudden, the new wears off. You quit going. You quit being engaged. That's how they win. So as long as we have a tool and the information that's laid out pretty black and white, like what Jason's done, then I think it's pretty simple. We just have to put the gas pedal down and not let up.
Well, I mean, I know this sounds really stupid and trite, and you can take it for what it is, but it's true. There's nothing that's not true about it. You can't turn the Titanic on a dime.
Yeah.
I mean, think about how enormous our government has become.
Oh, huge.
you can't just reduce that in 15 minutes. And then you can't try. And it's just like you said a second ago, you've seen people get so upset about school boards and what's going on at schools. And then it's like they wake up and it's a different day and well,
well, just look at how literally everyone has already checked out of the library book, porno book in the schools. Not even an issue anymore. No one even talks about it. Nobody cares.
I did on my Facebook page yesterday.
Yeah. Well, you're not nobody. But I'm just saying, it's things like that we're letting slip by. So they're going to stay in there, and then they're going to just multiply it in a future deal with something else.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. There's nobody how many times have you said this phrase? Nobody's coming to save us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it goes back to like what Jason said with your neighbors and all of that, taking care of your neighbors and your local, the most local thing, that's where you can start first. It's like we've talked about before. Go back in time. We used to have neighborhood block parties and all kinds of stuff. And the government, maybe the Marxists, whoever, they figured out how to damage our culture and separate us as neighbors. That's literally what they've done. Now we only care about ourselves. We care about our money. We care about our social media. We care about reality TV. We care about, brain rot, just scrolling through, watching all this stuff on your phone. That's what matters now, instead of taking care of what's right here in front of us every day.
It's funny, but my neighbor group out here, when we have coffee on Tuesday mornings, one of the things that is not infrequently discussed is the fact that when some of us who moved out here, we lived in neighborhoods before and in the city. And one lady lived in a neighborhood in Yukon, and I lived in Quail Creek in Oklahoma City. We have more friends now, and we're more plugged in out here than we ever were when we had people all around us. Make that make sense. Yeah. I mean, we're all just going, how does that happen? And I don't know if it's the mindset. You move out here and you want your own property. And so you have all this in common with the people around you because they moved out here for the same reason. I mean, I don't know what it is, but we have to reconnect with one another.
Yeah, I'm right there.
I mean, and this is fun too. I don't know if anybody will really get it or not, but one of the cool things about our neighborhood is, I guess it was 3 years ago. Now we were a couple of us. Our neighborhood group has grown out here the longer that we've been in it. I mean, it's actually grown and encompassed even more of the area around us. And about 3 years ago, I just came up with an idea on the fly. I was like, what if we all had a progressive dinner, because we live in kind of different places, and wouldn't that be fun if we just did something like that? Well, for 3 years now, we've actually had a New Year's Eve dinner. That's what we do out here, is we have, the neighbors get together and we have New Year's dinner. I mean, it's such a wonderful thing to be connected with your neighbors. It just is. And once you reconnect with those neighbors, you find that it's no longer you against the world. It's you and a bunch of other people against the world. And it actually, you feel that sense of community, and it's a really empowering thing, not just a fun thing, which it's also that, but it's a really empowering thing. I mean, so I just can't tell you enough that we have to overcome that hurdle. This has to go away, or just put it to the background. I mean, we pretty much have to have them anymore. I do so much research on these, so I don't want to say, throw it out, but I'm just saying this has to, when you sit down and you think, well, I'm going to scroll through Facebook. Well, I promise you could be doing something, unless you're watching my page, of course. You could be doing something way better and probably connecting with your neighbors. So I don't know. Anything else, Michael?
Yeah, I want to show real quick.
Okay.
Just something that I've come across that's very disturbing.
The disturbing.
I got to get the right screen here.
Okay.
On my screen. We've talked about the Genius Act and all the crypto stuff and Trump's deal with that. And I'm not anti-Trump at all. I mean, I think he does 100 really good things and then 1 or 2 real bad things. It's hard to judge people like that.
Yeah.
As being bad. But I'll just tell you, when it comes to, do you remember? Let me make this. You remember the Dodd-Frank?
Oh, yes. That was
the Wall Street
November thing.
Protect the consumer, because the investment banks and all the Wall Street, they went massive on all of the real estate products, with leverage that was like insane. They were just making fake products up out of the air and this and that. I think at one point, Jenny, Fannie and Freddie were buying products that were leveraged 70 times is some of the old, some of the highest numbers that were reported in that leverage side. So, I mean, it's insane. But what I want to show is, if we go into the Genius Act. So here's the Genius Act.
And this was the one, it has not been passed yet, correct?
No, the Genius Act's been passed. So this Dodd-Frank, I want to show you this section of Dodd-Frank. Okay. So in Dodd-Frank, I'll go back down this way. 171, section 171 is all about leverage and risk capital requirements. So basically in Dodd-Frank, they went into all these banks, all these investment places, hedge funds, all these places. They said, hey, you have to at least have, X amount of dollars, $30 for every $100 that you have in the bank. You have to keep that in reserve.
Okay,
you can't just lend out, 100% or 1,000% or, whatever.
Right.
So, but what I want to show is in the Genius Act. So here we are in the Genius Act. If we come down here, I need to do I'm going to do a Control F here. I need to find this one term here. Okay, look at this. So when you go through the Genius Act, it's all these pages, got all this information. When you look at it, let me get this right here and let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. Because this is very, very important to the future of the United States. Our money, our sovereign, sound money. Let me scroll back down here. I'm going to have to use my deal to find it. Okay. Right here. So they're talking about within the Genius Act, they're applying right here the applicability of the Stability Act, which that's the Dodd-Frank Act. So that's the act that's governing all these banks and institutions about how they can, what they can do with the money that they have. So right here, with respect to the promulgation of the rules under the paragraph, blah, 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 blah,
right,
of the Financial Stability Act right here.
Okay, shall not apply.
Section 171 shall not apply. So you know what that means? You remember what Section 171 is? That was all the leverage. That was how they could lend out.
Oh my gosh.
And how much risk they're allowed to take. So now, when you have all these stable coins, now you're going to have tech companies, all these major places, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, everybody that's a big financial person or has big interest, they can do these stable coins. And Section 171, the leverage side of the Dodd-Frank Act, Consumer Protection Act, does not apply to how and what they can do. So we're going to get right back in the situation where you're going to have 100x, 1000x leveraged products out there. This total BS. I mean, this is total BS, Jim. Total BS. It's completely under the radar because in this entire document up here, there's only 2 instances of the mention of 171, and it's just right here in the definition, and then right here to say section 171 doesn't apply. And you see, they don't even call it Dodd-Frank here, so you can't search it. You'd have to call it Stability Act.
Yeah.
So they did all that on purpose. It's on purpose. So now you're going to have like Google Coin issuing hundreds of billions of dollars in our dollars, in what the future digital dollar is going to be. That's what's going to happen. I'm telling you right now, that's exactly what's going to happen. That's why I never like that. I don't like that. I think it's terrible. It's just, we need sound money. We need money that's gold, silver, commodity backed in some way, that's sound, tangible money. And that's going to eliminate a ton of this stuff. We need to print our own money. We don't need the Federal Reserve. We have a treasury. We need to revalue all of the assets of the United States, kick out the Federal Reserve, print our own money. That's actual sound money in the United States.
Robert has a good question. Did you see this? It just popped up. Google Coin, is that tied to their stock?
Well, they haven't issued a stable coin yet, but it'll be part of the income source that goes into their stock, because when they issue their coins, they'll buy treasuries with them. They'll get the return off of those. So, I mean, they'll have income coming in from the use of those coins, which will affect their stock.
We're going to figure out, I wonder if there's a way to get Oklahoma to use, you know what I'm saying, coinage. I wonder if states could do that, could actually
have their own treasury and issue their, I'm sure they can.
I don't think there's anything, I don't remember reading anything about that in the Constitution, but if I'm wrong, please somebody tell me, because I'm not going to pull my pocket Constitution out and chase it down right now. But it would be, something. Yeah. We just have to have representatives of the people who are interested in the welfare of the people and not the private interest. There's just no way to get around that. Once we do have a group of legislators that are we the people centered, I think some of this stuff will turn around pretty quickly. But we have to get them in there first, and to fight the interests who have long taken over where we've abdicated. That's why it's going to take, be like the Titanic trying to turn it around. Yeah. We've abdicated our responsibilities in government far too long. And so we've allowed the private interest to basically assume our duties in government.
Yeah. Well, and Robert's got a couple more comments there about the stable coins, and we can talk about that on another show, but just real quick, for those that don't know, a stable coin is basically just going to be the digital representation of a paper $1 bill. So a $1 stable coin is going to be a $1 paper bill, but it's just digital. So right now, all of our dollars are basically
so it's still issued. Fiat money.
Do what? Yeah, it's fiat. So our paper money is fiat. All our current currency is fiat. It's not actual. Yeah. But the Federal Reserve, the banking system, the Federal Reserve issues that. Now, with stablecoins, you're going to have the digital version. And because of the Genius Act, any private corporation can now, as long as they buy U.S. Treasuries, they can issue those $1 paper bills, but they're digital. They can issue them themselves. So like Robert also asked, why would anybody want those coins? What they're going to do is highly incentivize you to use those coins. They're going to pay you in the beginning. Yeah. They're going to pay you in the beginning. They're going to pay you, certain amounts of interest to switch your dollars, your dollars in your bank account over to a stable coin. They're going to give you, rewards. They're going to give you discounts. They're going to give you, all kinds of stuff like that. They're going to highly incentivize that to where you're like, man, I'm getting 10% on my savings in this, let's say, Google coin. Google's paying me 10%. My bank's paying me nothing. Why wouldn't I do that? So that's how they're going to do that and implement that in the future. It's going to highly incentivize it till you're in and you get used to using it. And when you go to the store, you're going to just use your Apple Pay wallet or your Google Pay wallet or whatever. And it's just going to go deduct it just like it would deduct from your checking account or your debit card or your credit card. And you'll get rewards, and they'll just get you used to this. It's not going to be just overnight. All these stable coins are just going to appear. You know, it's going to take a while. But that to me, that has paved the way. That little thing right there that takes the leverage and risk out of the equation has now paved the way for all these huge financial companies to say, yeah, I'm going to do that because I can make 10x on the back end of this deal, or I can make 20x, or I can make 30x or 40x. You know, that's how those things go.
Well, and like you said, until they don't offer you anymore and they say, you know, now you won't be able to get a banking account if you don't have this. Now you won't be able to do this without that.
Yeah.
I mean, it will come down to that. I mean, there's no way around it if we don't figure out a way to stop it. And unfortunately, this is a real Achilles heel for Trump. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I mean, he's heads and shoulders above what we've had before, and I'm certainly not going to say anything about it, but there are some criticisms that are pretty stellar, and this is one of them. This really seems to be something that
you're going to have, you want to talk about, because this is going to be a whole brand new asset class that's going to come on. It's never existed before. You're going to have fortunes made like you can't even believe, because when you look at the currency, like if we brought up the debt clock and you look at the actual currencies that are out there, that's all controlled by the Federal Reserve, and there's trillions of dollars in currency. Okay, so when that trillions of dollars starts migrating over to private companies, other banks, other institutions, even, I mean, governments could issue their own coins. It doesn't matter. As long as they buy treasuries from the US, they can issue those coins. But now they're going to be able to use leverage in those coins and all these other products. It's so sophisticated, but you know, it's just
like debt. It's like debt buying debt and more debt.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just gonna massively escalate that debt cycle, because you're selling, you're taking in money, you're taking these coins, but you're giving the government more room to put more debt on because you're buying their treasuries in the same time. So you're almost creating two things at once. You're creating this stable coin, and you've got another treasury on top of it, both doing, you know, and having an impact in society. Now, it is going to take some time, and I hope that there are some people that really vet all this out, say, hey, I think we might have made some mistakes here, or this or that. But think about it like this. It's like, Jenny, if I give you, you know, from one of these private companies, a prepaid Visa card for $100, you know, you can go use that card, do whatever you want. It's not, you know, it's not really infringing on you or this or that. You know, it's just going to be part of your life in the future if I keep refilling that card for you all the time. But on the back end, that company is making all kinds of money, you know, on the fees and all kinds of things by you using that card. It's not going to just bankrupt you if I give you a prepaid, you know, $100 card from a private company. You can still use it and do it. That's exactly how these things are going to work. You're going to have.
And I like this one too. Robert says it sounds like when railroads used to pay their employees all in railroad money.
Yeah. Well, think about it. What if Apple says, hey, to buy on the App Store, you need Apple Coin.
Yes.
You know, fast forward into the future. You need to have Apple Coin to buy Apple. You need to have Google Coin to buy Google. You need to have Amazon Coin to buy Amazon. I mean, that's what we're going to devolve into is
well, and I'm going to give you a real world example of that happening. So I did not want a chip card, debit card from my bank. I did not want one. And yet I was issued one. So when I called, and it's not even a bank, it's Tinker Federal Credit Union. And so I called them and I said, okay, TFCU, I don't want this chip card. And they said, well, tough toenails, this is what you get. We don't have another one anymore. No, and you're laughing, but you know that's exactly how this is all going to come to pass.
Well, you go to the
and
store.
That's a real world example.
we don't take cash anymore at the store. You have to pay with a credit card. I mean, we've seen those. I've seen those. I'm like, I'm going to, you don't take cash. Even at schools now, you go to a school game or something. Oh, we don't take cash. You got to use our app. You have to sign up and use the app to pay to get into the game.
Well, I guess we're just going to all have to go, well, I don't do that. Here's your cash. If you don't like it, don't take the cash. I'm going in. I mean, really, honestly, I don't see how, and I do want to put this in. Lisa, she's going to be on our show next month. She's running for governor, and she says he may not be aware of this change. He does have a lot going. Well, I want you to speak to that just briefly, because you and I have talked about this. It's not, he knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, I mean, did President Trump read the entire bill? Probably not. Does he have people that tell him what it is, how it's going to work? You have to remember, he is a massive, he's like a tier 1 investor. Okay. He is the kind of guy that 100% benefits from this, to where, there's no benefit for us in this, but does he know? I mean, I'll just tell you, every investor I know, every banker that I know, hates that they're regulated in any capacity. That there are certain things that need to, that I'm not a big regulations guy. I don't want to have to, live everything by, red tape and this and that. But at some point, when it comes to these financial guys, money is king. That's it. There is no moral value system when it comes to finance. I mean, I'm in finance. I know, I see the decisions made every day. You can just go all back through time and look at how a company will allow people to be killed and just deal with the lawsuits rather than fix the problem.
Because it's going to cost them too much.
Yeah, like any car, Ford
Insurance.
or whoever, you've seen those. But when it comes to this kind of stuff, this is pure money creation. President Trump and his boys, they are invested in these other companies that have stable coins. They have their own. They've received millions and billions of stable coins or other coins in these processes. I mean, he knows. Does he think it's going to be, another 2008 meltdown? Probably not. Does he think it's good for, people that are in the know? Yeah. Is it the best thing for us? Not in my opinion. I wouldn't let a stable coin be legal, in my opinion. I wouldn't let a private company issue a United States dollar in any capacity. I would move it all back to the Treasury, but that's me. So, I mean, I think the Federal Reserve is illegal. I think the private central bank is illegal. I mean, I don't think we're in the position we're in because of that. So this is just another avenue, because this asset class is coming online in the next 10 years. If you have control of that asset class, you are going to basically, I'm not going to say control the world, but you're going to make so much money, you can basically do whatever you want.
Unless we put some real regulation on it, unless we go back to a gold or a metal standard. I won't say gold standard anymore, but I'll say a metal standard. Then, yeah.
Well, some type of commodity bank, but in the beginning, the way that all this got passed and put in was, yes, we were all deathly aware and afraid of a CBDC, so a central bank digital currency, because we knew if a central bank did that, they'd have control of all our money. They could see every transaction you have. They could see who, what, when, where. Everything is total surveillance. Well, now, in my opinion, it's even worse. I'd rather have a central bank, at least one place, have it that I know that's more transparent, because the central bank is going to have some transparency and accountability to Congress, and lightly, I'll say that lightly. But now you're going to have private companies, because that's specifically what this is for. This is for private companies that just play ball with the government. Now they're going to be able to issue that debt as long as they buy government debt. But the caveat is they can buy the government debt. So now they can issue their coins, but now they can leverage those coins in all kinds of other transactions. That's where the real problem is.
Yeah. But I mean, think about it like this too. And then we got to go, because it's already 1:54. Think about it like this too. Everybody is finding a data center.
Yeah.
I mean, that's completely investor driven.
Yeah. 100%.
Completely. Everybody knows that it's going to be absolutely worthless in a matter of, years for certain, few years, like maybe even 1 or 2 years. But they want to make their money right off the top. And by God, they're going to crush the rest of us that, aren't in the investor class to be able to do that. So you got to be really discerning about some of the stuff that goes on, because it's not about we, the people. It's about we, the investors, we, the special interests. And it's that just a continuation of the theme that we've had for this entire podcast today.
Yeah.
And people have got to be discerning and really think on that.
And I'll tell you, Jenny, President Trump seems like he's kind of made a 180 here just recently. I mean, look, he just literally said that all these investment companies and these big hedge funds and all these, they can't buy residential houses anymore. I mean, he literally just said that a couple of days ago. Said I don't know if he wrote an executive order or whatever it was.
Yeah, I'd like to know, because I just read something about after the fires in California, how many investors had bought property.
Oh, yeah.
It was way more than personal individuals.
Yeah. Well, so if he did do that, I mean, he's on the track, I think, to give us back some, a little bit of power, because you got to stop companies like BlackRock and these hedge funds that literally go in and I'm telling you, they buy entire neighborhoods, like from builders, like before builders even, as soon as the builder starts to put something together, a BlackRock come in and say, hey, I want the entire neighborhood, build it for me, and then they start controlling these markets, driving the prices up. So if he's doing that against guys like Larry Fink and BlackRock and these hedge funds, maybe he'll escalate that across the board into the data centers. And I mean, I just hope he does. I mean, I hope it just continues to say, hey, this is a total infringement. This is totally against, humanity in some capacity. Let's put the brakes on these things right now. I mean, I hope that he can, continue that.
Well, and I think one of the biggest things that we talked about the other day was, and we've talked about for the last several months, is we have antitrust laws.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have them. Nobody seems to want to follow them.
Yeah, it's it's like you think back, it's like antitrust and monopolies. You're just like, oh, that's the robber barons. That's the guys from the Great Depression. That's tech companies. That's these massive, because you've had such a consolidation. I mean, think about it, Jenny. You used to have thousands of independent newspapers. Thousands of little independent stores, mom and pop stores, thousands of all these
independent cattle producers, independent feedlots, independent seed companies.
We're just consolidating. We're all selling out. We're consolidating down into just, 2 or 3 conglomerates that basically own and control it all. I mean, that's where we're going at a faster pace than ever.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Lisa does say it does sound like it's made to make money for a lot of people and companies. I agree. I don't like the idea of coins required either. I agree with you, Michael. Glad you're on it. Okay, well, we are going to stop since we're almost at 2 hours. And I will tell you what we have for next Wednesday. Who doesn't love the Pike Off OTA?
I'm not raising my hand because I love the Pike Off OTA.
Right. Well, no, that's what I'm saying. You got to raise your hand. Who doesn't love them? I love them. I think they're great. Maybe I went backwards on that. Who knows? Anyway, I love Pike Off to OTA. They're going to be on with us. I'm not sure who all, if it's Amy and Kelly and Whitney or one of, I'm not sure, but several of them will be on with us on Wednesday to talk about the legislation they're working with legislators to try to stop the OTA. People, if you don't, this is bad. I mean, that's got to be, if that's one of the biggest things that we tackle this upcoming legislative season, that has to be it. You can't, I will keep going. I don't want to do that. Okay. Then in the afternoon, we're going to have our friend Katie Smith with Visit come on, and she's going to talk about some things with the Lincoln Lockman case, particularly that she's found. And she wasn't taking a break like I was trying to. She was actually out working, and she found some things that are I mean, you think it's been bad in the past, way, way, way worse.
Yeah.
So you're going to be want to be with us next Wednesday at 1:00 for the special with Katie and V1SUT. And then in the morning at 9 a.m. for Pike Off OTA and the legislation that they're working on trying to get past this upcoming session. So anything else, Michael? Thank you for all of that information.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a new place we're going into, and I do not like it. I mean, I think there's ways to do it right, and there's not ways to do it right. And I don't like how fast all this has just completely just gone through, passed into law, signed. It's being implemented. It's going to start this year, so we're going to see it start rolling out. But ultimately, like we talked about with Jason, I mean, it's up to us. We need to take care of our neighbors and really watch what's going through here and make our changes here. And maybe we can get enough people to not participate.
Yep. We the people. Hey, don't forget, everybody, you'll see it on the roll, but don't forget, next month is the Liberty Oklahoma Conference. I'm not getting tickets sold to that. We're going to have great information at that conference. We're going to have a lot of good legislators who are going to be there. We've got a lot of information for you to learn. Please go to libertyok.org, sign up, at least look and see what we've got on the schedule. I think you'll be happy with that and really love it. And Saturday night, I've worked out a deal with Mick Rosato, who is going to come on, who is going to be filming the GOP gubernatorial forum on that Saturday night. And we are going to pipe that in live on Saturday night. We were going to do an awards assembly, but now we're going to pipe in the live GOP gubernatorial forum into the conference with Mick Rosato's help. And so everybody can see what's going on. I think it's going to be great. You'll have a nice dinner and be able to watch what's going on with our gubernatorial candidates. So please buy a ticket, sign up for me, libertyok.com, and you'll get to see who our sponsors are after we close out. So thanks for being with us today. Always love to have you on the show, Michael. And thank you so much for your financial perspective. You're awesome. And we will see everybody again next Wednesday with Pike Off OTA and Katie Smith of V1SUT. So hang in there. Have a great weekend.